Good day, my fellow nerds. We're back with the Corner of Remnant, and I'm your host, Larissa, and I'm joined by co-host Emperial Dawn.
Hi.
And today we're discussing both episodes 2 and 3, because I was away last weekend, so we weren't able to record the podcast, so we're going to probably do a slightly longer one today. We'll see how we go. But we're starting a bit earlier. Just so we've got plenty of time, because I still got puppy class this morning.
It is a miracle that we are both here.
We're both here, yay! We're actually both awake. Well, my puppy woke me up, so
Barely.
so I had to get up because of her, so that kind of helped. Yes. Yes. I hope everyone is doing well. Yeah. As we are going to be discussing episode 3 as well, so if you haven't seen it, just be aware of that, because we will be talking about it. So, spoilers. But yeah. Yes. It's too early.
Usual ramble to start off the podcast.
Yes. Oh dear.
Yeah, but thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for anyone who tuned in to episode from 2 weeks ago. Also, we missed last week. Larissa was on well-deserved little vacation and trip for her.
Little getaway.
Yeah. But we're here today to discuss episode 2 of Volume 9, Altercation at the Auspicious Auction, and episode 3, The Red, Rude, and Royal.
Yes, it's my RWBY podcast, right? I'm pretty sure I've told you about that before, but yeah, so we're talking about RWBY, which is an animated series that we both love, and I do a lot of RWBY content on my YouTube. So yeah, we're going to be discussing the most recent episodes of the show. So so we got episode 2, which was the Auspicious Auction, and also while talking of titles, it's they've got a theme with the titles again.
Yes, which we loved that last season a lot.
Yes, so with volume 8, we had just one worded titles, with the last episode being the final word, and then they've got a bit of a theme going here. So like we have Peculiar Place for episode 1, Auspicious Auction for episode 2, then Red, Rude, and Royal for 3. So
yeah, they're very over-exaggerated, titled and stuff. Again, tying into the whole Alice in Wonderland theme that we have going for this volume. And I guess just to get into it, I suppose, the thing that caught me off most about the second episode was the fact that just how well aware they were of the story.
Yes, yeah.
And just how instantly... And I like the fact that it was obviously Blake. I like Blake taking the charge this volume and stuff, and the idea that...
That's right.
the idea that... No, it's fine. The idea that, like, she knows so much about this and stuff, and...
Yes.
Yeah, so they obviously get a pretty good idea pretty early on of what this is and where they are, and kind of giving us a layout for how the episodes are going to go.
Yeah.
Yep. In a sense. But at the same time, we're 3 episodes in, and we only have one or two things left on the list of Alex that she did, which is obviously we still need to meet the Rusted Knight, and then we still need to escape from the tree. And that's in 7 episodes still, so I imagine we'll get a lot more than just that in the next
I felt
episodes.
Like they're very steaming through the story already, but I guess that's just going to open up more to the last few episodes to delve more into the characters and all of that sort of thing, so which will be really good. But I love episode 2, like starting off with them Weiss being very logical, trying to say, oh no, this isn't a fairy tale, this is, trying to be logical about it, but of course failing.
Yeah, trying very hard to kind of rationalize everything too, because again, like it's definitely a bold conclusion to come to, that we must be in a fairy tale of all things, and I'm still really curious as to why. Like the argument could be made that the fairy tale is just based off a real story. This is a real place, therefore it's not that auspicious that they've ended up here. But if it is just a story that was made up, why does this world exist?
Well, a lot of times,
an amalgamation from some, like, is this just an amalgamation coming from RWBY? Is this just, yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, a lot of time fairy tales and those sort of things usually have a grain or tooth in them. So
Yes.
I think the Ever After is a real place. And Alex definitely did visit this place. Maybe she wasn't called Alex, but someone did, and that's where the story and the fairy tale came from. As to where exactly they are, we don't really know. But I think it's definitely a real place, and it just happened that the story is about this place and about Alex's journey through this place. So
do you think you'll see Alex? Do you think Alex is a real person in this world?
Well, apparently she escaped through the tree, and apparently it will escape the Ever After, and that's how the story, I'm assuming, came out, because she returned to Remnant. Otherwise, no one would have known about it if she stayed in the Ever After. I still think we might be a flashback or something, maybe. I think we'll still see her at some point, but I don't think she's actually going to be there is my thought. Because
I don't think so either.
Yeah, because in the intro, like, you see them walking and you see the shade of Alice, but it's just her shadow.
They're following in her footsteps.
They're following her footsteps. Yeah.
The story. Yeah.
Yes.
A part of me at first, when I first watched it, was like, wow, everyone here knows this story. We've never heard of it before. But then I just think about every movie, every single character in every movie you've ever seen has probably heard of a fairy tale. They just don't bring it up. So it's completely believable they all know the story, just we hadn't heard of it. I mean, we did hear of it only last season, but they all are so familiar with the story. And they do it again, where I always like the detail of, and they've done this in RWBY a few times, especially since Volume 6, where if they want, trying to save on screen time and production and stuff, that if they want multiple characters to have the same opinion, they'll have characters interact with each other with the stories.
Yeah.
Like in Volume 6, we had a few moments where one person would go to say something and someone else would step in and say the same thing.
Yeah.
So they did here where, like, Blake would start the story and then Yang would come in to finish the rest, in a way to show that, like, hey, rather than both people explaining the same story, well, let's have both people saying the same story, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I always like that, just to say, like, here's what this character and this character think of it, without having both characters explain themselves. Just have both characters go to explain it, but you only need one person to actually explain the story.
Yes.
So I always like that little detail that they've chucked in here.
And I feel like for Blake, this story means a lot to her. I think it's probably one of her favourite fairy tales. That's sort of the feel that I got. While with the others, they've read it and they know about the fairy tale, but it seems to be sort of
Yang mentions later how, like, and Weiss, I think, has the same opinion that this was like a, like, Blake will see the story and see the good and the positive out of it and stuff. Whereas I think Yang and Weiss see it as, like, again, Alex being a cheat and manipulate her way through the situation and stuff.
A bit of a mean person, they mentioned. Yes.
Yeah. I remember seeing a comparison to Raven, that that Yang would see Alex in the same way that she would see Raven, and saying, like, she's like a cheat, a manipulator, and she'll kind of, like, cheat her way through the situations and stuff. And Weiss trying to look at it morally, and then you obviously have Blake later on, like, an existential crisis of, like, I can't believe that I'm the one being the moral in the situation.
Yeah, the moral of the story,
which I find really interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of depth to that comment. We'll get to it a bit later. I'm jumping ahead a bit, but yeah, I'm really curious. Because, again, we've said before that we like the idea that Blake's kind of the de facto leader in this volume. Despite RWBY obviously will have a very main focus. But, again, you'd argue that of RWBY's past volumes, Blake and RWBY are probably the two characters that, at least in Volume 7 and 8, haven't had the most focus. So to feel like they're getting a lot of focus. Obviously, the whole team RWBY is, and I think Chozo mentioned it earlier. I don't think we're going to get anything other than Ever After this volume at this point. I think that they just... And they've mentioned it too in the little post-show 5-minute clips they've put onto the RWBY, the RT Animation YouTube channel. The vibe they've said there makes me think that we're definitely going to stay here for this volume. I don't think we're going to get much Remnant.
We might get some at the end, I'm thinking, especially Team RWBY Return the Remnant.
If we escape at the end and we get kind of, sure.
Yeah.
As long as our 4 main characters are in the Ever After, I don't think we're going to see much beyond that.
No, I agree. I don't think we'll be seeing any of Remnant until they're able to return. Yeah, Chozo mentioned in the Owl House, some aspects of the demon realm leak through the human world. Maybe the same thing happens between Ever After and Remnant. Which also makes me think too, because we know with the relics and them being stored in a different place, we don't know if that might be linked to the Ever After. One thing that I noticed too, it's in episode 3, but I'm going to mention it now because I'll forget, is after the game, when the Red Prince is sort of running away from the board game table, you see the effects on his feet, like the little ding 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 sort of effects. That's not what we saw when with the relics and such. So it was just so I'm not sure if that's. It was an interesting little effect. I'm like, oh, that's familiar.
I don't think I noticed that, but I remember mentioning in our last episode the theory that I'm not sure if anyone else had spotted this, but I know we mentioned it, the idea that this could be, I don't know, it's interesting because episode 2 changes a lot in terms of what this world could be, but the idea that this was like if something like, where does the creations of the Relic of Creation go after they're no longer created? God, I could have said that better.
Yes.
But this is like the dumping ground of, when something isn't, the Relic of Creation no longer exists, this is where it would go.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is the Ever After, and this is a world, a separate world in a sense, I don't think that would be the case. I mean, it could be that Alex was transported to this world.
Yeah.
And this is just the story she got from this world, I guess, is still very possible. But I mean, it's interesting too. Like, you have Ruby, the most childlike character, and she's the one who Weiss as well. But Ruby's the first one to kind of be like, and she's very distracted. Obviously, she's not paying a lot of attention and focusing. But the idea that like she was like, come on, the fairy tale, that's ridiculous, and everyone's just like, Little's right there. You have a talking mouse.
Yeah, Little.
Which is like which I love that because it ties into like I can't remember. I think it's Weiss in an earlier volume, which is like, no, what was it? Is it? Which is like okay, I'm starting to see a point. She says it again in episode 2.
Yes.
Or at least something similar.
Yes.
I know she said that before in a previous episode, but I can't remember what's
Point taken.
Like, okay, I'm starting to see your point. Oh, that's right. It's in volume 6, episode 2.
Yes.
It's, no, sorry, it's Maria who says that. It's Maria in episode 6, volume 2, which is like, okay, I'm starting to see your point. Sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Love that favorite episode of RWBY. It's my favorite episode of RWBY. I love that episode. Yes. And some of these are definitely up there as well. Very good volume so far. But like I said, I love
very strong. Yeah.
Weiss trying to rationalize everything with logic and stuff, and she's just like, she's grown up in this. It's so interesting. I think this ties in really well to. I haven't seen anyone else mention this. I love how much this ties into. In volume 5, when Weiss says there's no such thing as magic, she's the person, despite the semblance and despite Atlas. She's still the most realist in the sense that she doesn't believe in magic at all until Raven shows her.
Yes.
So even in this sense, she's still the one who's the most resistant to this idea that we're in a fairy tale, we're in a make-believe place, because she just has this logical and realistic view of the world.
Yeah.
So I really like that tie-in to volume 5 as well, with the whole magic thing. I like that.
Yes.
A lot of detail, why she's so like struggling to this end. And I've seen a few bits and takes, but I love the humor and sadness that they've gone with this episode. This season so far, I've really enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed like the humor and the serious tones at all? Have you felt they've clashed at all, or have you really enjoyed it?
I haven't. I've really enjoyed it. I think when you have something very serious, and of course what happened with Penny's just underlying everything that's going on at the moment, I feel like you do still need a bit of humor to offset that. Otherwise, it's just going to be just too serious. So I like how they've included the humor, but also the way they've done it as well is the way the character's coping with what's happening, especially with Yang. Especially that's how Yang copes.
Yang. That's a good example of someone who a lot of people think she should be more serious in certain situations. But again. And I'm curious, I am really curious if this is going to tie around maybe to when we meet Jean again, because the first person to ever call Yang out for this crap, in terms of like coping mechanisms, was Ren back in last volume.
Yes.
Like Ren was, again, and this conversation was around Jean as well.
Yeah.
The idea that like, you don't need to make a joke, you don't need to laugh at everything, you can be serious and be scared, and that's okay. Love that scene, underrated scene from volume 8.
Yes.
So I'm curious if that's going to loop around, because it feels like she's doing that again.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if this is just, that was just at that moment thing, or if this is a back tread to redevelop, or if this was just a joke for the sake of joke. I'm really curious how that's going to lead in, and if when we get back with Jean, if that's going to tie in at all. It might not. That could be a bit of a stretch, but that would be cool because, like the Yang's joking in some scenes. Could definitely be seen as like inappropriate in some sense. Or maybe just mistimed. But I know as an audience member enjoying it, I've really enjoyed the mixes of humor and stuff, and it hasn't yet been like too serious to too comical, too close to each other. I can see that happening, but I don't think it's happened yet.
I think as we get through the volume, we're going to get into the more serious stuff and delving into that. So I like how this volume has been a bit more happy and cheerful before we get into the really serious stuff, which sort of reminds me a bit of Volume 5 was like that as well. And then I'm just hoping this doesn't turn into Volume 5 and go downhill in regards to, pacing and everything. But I think so far it's been paced really well.
Pacing has been really well. And I think that does help as much as like on the nose and kind of obvious the characters are aware of the whole this is a fairy tale, we're going to try to follow the same path that Alex did, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But that does help with the pacing because now the audience has a good idea of what's going to happen to every episode. Like again, episode 4 we're probably going to meet the Rusted Knight finally. Episode 5 we might get to the tree. Then something will happen where the rest of the season is they don't know what's happening now. Like that would make sense. Like half the season they're following Alex's story, they know where they're going, and then they get to the tree, and then all of a sudden something happens.
Yes. Yeah.
Neo, Jean, Alex, and then maybe because the thing is too, this is the first time ever, I think at least since Volume 5, that we've got that the trailer. There's still stuff in the trailer we haven't seen yet. Yeah. Obviously, that's because animation delays and all that kind of... Like, obviously, they've had the episode
they've been actually able to...
For the longest time. They've just been doing post-production for a long time. I think that's the case. And you can tell, just by watching the episode, that the animations... The little animations, the expressions, the shoulders, the eyes, the pupils, everything is a lot more detailed than it has been. And I don't know if that was intentional, or if that's just like the animators... It's like, well, we're done animating. The volume isn't going to come out for another year and a half still. Let's just go and add more detail so we can work. And obviously then we know what happens there.
It doesn't feel rushed. It feels like they've really spent their time to polish this to be
I'm
perfect.
Just fascinated if that was intentional. If they knew the volume was going to take this long, if they wanted to put this much detail in, or what I think is just that, well, for other things are going to stop the volume from coming out for this long, let's go back and just keep working on it because it's a job. We've got to be doing something. So let's just keep putting a little effort, little effort. I don't know if that's how animation works. I don't know if you can go back into a fully fleshed out render and make it nicer. I'm not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they've kind of done, just because the amount of detail has been really cool. And we'll get to that in episode 3 when we get to the fights.
Yes, absolutely. I think they've just had that extra time that they've been able to really polish it off and add all those extra details.
I'm just really curious if that was intentionally going into it, or if that's just happenstance that they've had the time to do that for other reasons. That's all. I don't know.
Don't know.
I would like to think the first one. That would be really awesome if that was the first one. Sure.
A chaser said, I've just realised that the concept of the ever after as a place where failed ideas and leftovers end up is like philosopher Douglas Hofstadter's concept of Tambolia, the land of dead hiccups and extinguished light bulbs.
Although that would definitely tie into the whole relic of creation, what's left after the relic of creation stuff, I suppose. That would tie into that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely possible. I think the only thing, just because I'm scrolling through the episode as we're talking, the only things I thought this episode that I didn't like, or at least didn't necessarily click with me, were some of the reactions in terms of like Weiss's overreaction to the Jinxie Peddler, like the who? That was weird to me.
Yeah.
And then also the reaction to Little not knowing their way back home. Yeah, we're funny, and you got like the 4 characters in a row there, their reactions, which I like the people comparing that to the Oobleck reactions in Volume 2. And just like how much better they look and stuff. It's like, that's so cool. Like, those 2 reactions I thought were a little overdone.
Yeah, they were a little over the top. But
better than underdone.
Yeah.
In this sense. Like, I'd much rather reactions be overdone. Those are just 2 little things. Everything else, I think I loved in both episodes we're going to talk about. I just want to get that out of the way. Those 2 reactions I thought were like, I would have done those a bit differently.
I do like how we're getting seeing a bit more interaction between them all as well, but whilst they're walking to the bridge, we had that little bumblebee moment, which was really sweet. That I really like that. And then of course we get to the bridge, and they decide to let Little come with them since he doesn't know his way back home.
Yeah, it's like, well, we don't really have a choice, so might as well keeping them along. But I wanted to mention too, before we get into the town and stuff, because we also had, like I said, we had the Bumblebee moment, which, yeah, okay, good. People like it, great.
It was just nice and subtle, like, it wasn't over the top.
I don't want to defend myself every single time. I have no problem with Bumblebee, it's just not the thing I enjoy in the show. It's not the thing that I love about the show. But I am happy it's kind of being addressed and it's being done, and everyone on Twitter can calm down.
I just love seeing Blake and Yang, Blake and Yang's interaction in that little scene, joking around, means you're disarmed and stuff like that. I love those little jokes. It's so cute.
When I watch it, I love it. When I go on Twitter afterwards and everyone's losing their damn mind, it's like, okay, guys, calm down.
It's calm down. They just slightly touched hands. It's okay. Don't need to panic.
One thing I did really enjoy when I watched it, that I remember seeing people reacting a bit differently to, and I'm curious what your reaction, which I would have seen. Yes, I would have seen, so I don't know why I'm asking you, because I've seen your reaction to it. Pardon me. But, have I? Yes. Yeah, episode 2 reactions out.
Yes.
Sorry. It's been like a week.
I know, it's sort of all out of whack.
The reaction to RWBY, obviously, seeing this / not seeing the Blake and Yang stuff, people on social media can be dumb sometimes. In terms of, like, it's not that she's ignoring it or she doesn't realize it. She's just, she wasn't even looking at it. It's not she was oblivious to seeing them. It's that she wasn't even looking at them at all. There's a difference.
Yeah, I think I said that in my reaction. She was a bit oblivious.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Sorry. My apologies. It's very important to remember that RWBY was the first person to see Bumblebee. She was the first person to look at them and go, okay, I see what's going on. That was the end of Volume 6. She was the first person. She looked at Yang. She looked at Blake. She was hugging Blake. Looked at Yang. She, in that moment, got the Bumblebee thing. So this is just a matter of, again, she has so much on her mind. She's so distracted. She doesn't care. And again, she doesn't care because she's not a romantic,
Yeah. Because Weiss noticed it, and it's just like, about time. Reeves like, what? Because I feel like her mind was just elsewhere. She just wasn't paying attention to what was actually happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it has nothing to do with her disinterest in them. It's just, she was just, her mind was elsewhere so been the whole time and stuff. And again, to the point where she's so, I don't want to say selfish, because that's not the right term at all.
No.
But she's so just narrow-minded no, that's also not right. She's so just distracted, I guess is probably the right term, in everything that's going on, that, she doesn't notice her sister in one of her best friends in a good place in a good moment. She's just so self-distracted.
Self-centered?
I can't find the right word. No, I just know.
I know, I can't really quite think of the right
I think the point is just that, she's just
too much on her mind,
so much on her mind, and she can't
self-absorbed. Yes, that works.
Self-absorbed, to the point where not only does she not notice her sister and best friend, actually, wife sees that, and she's like, oh, well, that's at least something positive out of the situation. She sees that they have time now and they have and they're handling it well and they're taking it well, and Weiss is happy for that. RWBY not only doesn't see that, so she's, still self-depressed and stuff about her own situations and stuff. The fact that, and she's so distracted to the point where she was like, yeah, it's okay, Weiss, don't worry, we'll get out of this, we'll get you home. And it's like, and again, I'm not ribbing on her or being mad or annoyed at her or anything. I completely understand where she's coming from. But again, in that moment, she's like, oh, Weiss, I shouldn't have said that. I know your home's gone. I'm sorry. I'm just, you want me to be positive. There's my positivity, and then it's just thrown right back in her face.
Yeah.
Both of them. And it's just, and it's one of those things where it makes you think, a lot of people would say that Weiss didn't get enough of a spotlight in volumes 7 and 8, despite it should have been her volumes, much like this volume is RWBY's volume and stuff. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I get that there was probably more we could have done. But it was such a big 2 volumes, and there was so much we had to do. So I get it. But it's good, because we hadn't seen this yet. Good seeing Weiss kind of finally getting her time to reflect. RWBY has had her, Penny moments, and she'll definitely have one later. But Weiss now gets her Atlas moment. She gets to really sit back and go, it's all gone. Everything we fought for.
Her home's gone.
yeah, sure, sure, the kingdom, the people may have mostly made it out, but again, not all of them. And, there's still the possibility we might run into some people down here that also fell, but I don't think we're going to see that. But it's a possibility we're going to see that. More people and stuff. But considering that no one's seen humans, I'd assume we probably, at least not in a long time. It seems like humans haven't been here since Alex. It seems to be the case. Even though the Curious Cat does imply that he has met many humans, or they have met many humans.
Met others, yeah.
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 And I really, sorry, again, I really want to also point out that I love that Weiss, despite her situation, again, like I said, they both got thrown into each other's faces about Atlas and stuff. Like RWBY obviously feeling guilty that she brought that up. Weiss obviously the guilt of failing. But Weiss still stands up and goes, I know, but I'm here for you as well. We can both be here for each other. You know, I'm sorry that hearing about Penny must have been, big for you, just like Atlas was for me. And RWBY, where Weiss can stand up and go, yeah, I'm sad, but I'm still here to help you. RWBY can't do that. She's like, Penny, and she just walks away. She doesn't give Weiss that reflection back to her. And it's just, I did see someone mention today that Weiss didn't necessarily give all the story of what happened. Yeah. And I didn't necessarily notice that when I first watched it, and I don't even necessarily agree that she didn't. But I also do like the idea that in Weiss's mind, it's not her it's not responsibility. It's not her right to tell what John did, what John's involvement was in it, because that's not her right to tell that to RWBY. That's something that John has the right to say to her. I don't know if that's where she was going from, or if it's just a matter of that's not a necessary bit of the story, or if there's even more people we're referring to. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Well, we don't know all of what Weiss said because we didn't actually hear her tell that story. We only sort of
that's a good point.
Heard the reactions of Yang and Blake. So we don't know quite yet.
That's true. I mean, but regardless, RWBY wouldn't know. We assume that RWBY doesn't know John's involvement in that, and that was a big theory going into this volume. Is that would that cause a rift between the characters? What significance would that be between them?
Because I think she mentions like John did what he could, or tried to help. I can't remember.
John did what he could. Yeah. I think she said John did what he could, but Penny sacrificed herself. She said Penny.
That's right. Yeah,
herself, but not necessarily connecting the two. I believe. So all that emotional exhaustion.
Then we got the little town.
Got the.
And the bridge, the rickety bridge. Like, I was expecting to see them getting across this rickety bridge, but no, it cuts right to when they're about to go into the village.
Yeah, well,
the town.
We saw some shots from the trailer of a rickety bridge, but that definitely.
Little's house. Yes, Little's house. That was so cute.
That was an interesting scene. They threw that in there. I'm curious if if there's a significance to that.
Yes.
I've not realised something, but that's definitely interesting. And they're definitely I think they're making it a point to bring Little along. I think Little has some significance in the story going forward as well.
Yes.
I know a lot of people have compared Little to Penny, and that in a way Little is kind of
Penny's spirit or sort of
Penny, I don't think in a literal sense, but in a kind of psychological sense. And again, which ties in again, is this world a amalgamation from someone's emotions? Is Little just a manifestation of Penny for RWBY? If this world is kind of RWBY's, even though I feel like it'd make more sense for it to be Yang since Yang fell first, but I'm curious if the world is warping around them in a certain way.
It's definitely reacting to them because we've seen when, especially RWBY being sad as the rain.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, so it does. Yeah, so I'm curious if Little exists. I mean, and Little obviously talks about. Obviously, Little keeps talking about their purpose and like what significance they will have when they get older and stuff, and they also mentioned that they want to be longer, which Yang thought was a funny joke, which again, ha 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 ha. So I'm curious. Yeah, like Little's gonna play a role at the end of the volume. I'm just very curious as to what.
Yeah, because I can see RWBY getting
enough about them.
Yeah, if RWBY does get separated from the rest of the team, then it's very possible that Little's going to be the only one there for her. So Little will be that support. Possibly.
Yeah, but I'm curious why. Like why introduce this character just to be emotional support when the whole volume is about our team being together and our team kind of being supported.
They'll definitely have some effect on the story, absolutely. Some importance.
It wouldn't surprise me if Little has some similar role as the Curious Cat, because the Curious Cat, as we'll get to, I think is some, it's not necessarily just a word to throw around these days, but I think the Curious Cat is a manipulator of some sort. Like, obviously the Cheshire Cat had other intentions and other purposes and was kind of working everyone to get what they wanted. I definitely think the Curious Cat is similar, and I almost think that Little, in a way, is a part of that.
Yeah.
Like we also saw in the next episode, like the butterflies and stuff, so clearly whether that was Alex or the Curious Cat, I think it was the Curious Cat.
I think it's the Curious Cat, yeah, definitely.
There's definitely, there's something watching them and definitely working around them. So I'm curious if Little is a part of that, whether Little knows it or not.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious.
Chosa does say that, the toy soldiers say, it's raining, someone is sad nearby or sad near. Yeah, so...
so it's clear, so it reacts to everyone, not just...
It's just Ruby's been the one who's been sad at those points. Yeah. Hey, Drew, welcome in. Yeah, so it's definitely reacts to their emotions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love walking through the town, and we mentioned that we saw in the intro, like, all, like, the I don't know what you call them.
They look like board game pieces.
Civilians?
Yes.
Yeah, which ties into next episode nicely as well.
Yeah, it does, yeah. They all sort of look like board game little plastic figurines and such. They're really cute. I think they're adorable.
To be honest, they also look like the figures from the board game, from the...
Oh, yeah, Ruby Combat
Ready board game almost. Like, just in that, like, that similar kind of way. I'm curious if, like, they kind of mimicked that kind of style and stuff.
Yeah.
It was funny seeing, like, an old school kind of Yang and stuff, her coming in, like, fighting being her first reaction, which I thought was almost comical.
Yeah.
Like, it works enough with Yang to be like, haha, get it, that's funny, but it's almost like, okay, let's just not just walk in here and mess people up, Yang. Like, I know, which, I guess, it's one of those things where she's done it the whole show.
Yes.
She actually says it out loud, almost feels like,
oh,
let's calm down. But then you think like, well, no, she has been doing it the whole show. She just doesn't necessarily said it out loud, but that has been her thing.
That's been her thing.
Like, we have the bar.
Shoot first, ask later.
But we also get the voice again, the moral, the voice of reason, Blake coming in and being like, hey, Alex caused problems when they were here before. They caused wars and trouble with the townsfolk.
Let's fight.
Exactly. Again, it feels like almost a chibi level line. It's like,
it does.
Let's calm down here, Yang. But again, like Blake's trying, like she knows the story well enough. Like she knows the moral of the story, so she wants to make sure that let's not repeat the whole story to learn the moral. I know the moral. Exactly. Let me tell you the moral. Let's do the right thing. Yeah. And but the world's working against them. Alex did what they did for a reason, and that's proven in the episode because they end up doing essentially
basically what Alex did.
Yeah.
One thing I really like too in this, I really like the design of the actual village and town. If you look closely, you can see different shop signs in the background, other little details, the posters about the Prince's party, all of that detail in the background. I think all the town villagers and everyone really detailed as well, which is really nice to see. And I like how Blake mentioned about Jinxie looking older than he was in the books, which is another hint we get to later on with episode 3, that it looks like some time has passed since Alex was here. So that's really interesting.
Which also is also interesting because what does that mean in terms of like when we get back to Remnant?
Yeah.
Like, how does time work in this compared to that kind of thing? But it could also be seemingly that just, I don't know, I guess it probably leads credence to the idea of time working slower in this. Yes. Because you would assume that Alex's story is from at least 100, if it's a fairy tale, we've got to assume it's quite old.
It has to be quite old.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
So it could be before the Great War. Just the 100 years is a good benchmark because Ruby's used that a few times. So let's say before the Great War that Alex came here, just as a theory, because it needs to be quite old to be a fairy tale, you would think.
Absolutely. And her name doesn't seem, well, we don't know her full name, I don't think, but it doesn't seem to relate to a colour either. So it definitely seems to be prior to the Great War.
And I'm trying to think what Ozpin said in Volume 8 when he and Oscar were talking about it. Like I think Ozpin said, I think Oscar brought up the story first.
Yeah.
Oscar was telling the story to himself.
Yes.
To help him through the situation. And Ozpin mentioned, I've heard of that, the girl who fell for the world.
Yeah.
Which the way Ozpin said it, I think to me implies it is a newer story. It's not one he's super familiar with.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I'm not too sure, but it seemed to me that maybe he's like, I've heard of that one, The Girl Who Fell Through the World.
Yeah.
Which, from Ozpin's perspective to me, tells me it is a newer story, because I feel like the older stories that he lives through, he would know much better, to the point where he wouldn't say, like, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I don't think he had any involvement or was involved in that particular when it happened. So he probably heard about it after the fact. Yeah, when it started, the story started being more widespread and ended up turning into the fairy tale in the book.
I also do like to, Weiss continues the trend here. I guess Weiss is very much an animal lover, which is ironic in a racist sort of way. Because of her past, the White Fang and stuff.
But she's like, he's so cute.
Yeah, and then obviously later too, in episode 3, like as much as she hates Little, you can see her petting Little once once she's shrunk down the size and stuff. So as much as she hates, which is ironic. She hated Blake at first. Yes. To love her. So it's just a thing with animals with Blake. With Weiss, she always like takes her time, but she'll love animals eventually, if they're not cute off the bat.
Yeah.
I'll just say Blake wasn't cute off the bat. Blake, of course, was cute off the bat.
Of course she was. But yes,
that was a nice. That's a nice little detail they threw in there. And like I said, Blake mentions that they're older and stuff, and then we get the
3 items.
The 3 items and stuff. And obviously, it was one of those things where like I was like, okay, scepter, that's the arm, kind of thing. And I like that. It's something they do in stories a lot, where they kind of play up the characters not knowing much, but they didn't do it. They didn't drag it on too long. They kind of like, well, if I want to guess, I'm pretty sure that one's going to be my arm.
Yes,
so they
definitely.
Draw it out too much.
I was like, it's too obvious. It can't be that one because it's too obvious. Then it's like, well, actually, no, it is.
Yeah, it is. I definitely didn't notice the significance to the doll at first. Not until Ruby mentioned. Like, it wasn't something that clicked in my head immediately.
No, I didn't even think about. Well, she said she could feel something to do with that one, which made sense. Yeah, for sure. And then obviously go to the auction. The auction obviously requires certain thing. This was another point of disparaging the episode, along with like Ruby not knowing about Bumblebee because people are dumb and don't get context. Another big one too was like they were offering her things, and it was like a hug for the Diamond Rabbit. Yeah. And then for the Scepter, I was obviously fighting over them between the guards and stuff. Yeah. The offer is for I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I wish I fucking had subtitles on here, Crunchyroll. Rather because I'm not listening to it. But the idea of like, you have to give up. I think the implication was, in order to get the scepter, you need to give up what it is like to feel loved. I don't think they had to give it up, but they had to sort of, I don't know.
Well, see, the reason why I say give it up, because to me that makes more sense in the, again, like, they're toy soldiers. They don't care.
No, they don't care.
Yeah, that's their job, and they're not, I don't want to say not real, that's not fair to say, but, like, it doesn't matter to them as much. To me, the idea of you have to give it up for the scepter makes more sense of why we got the reaction Yang did. Because Yang now knows what it's like to be loved. She knows with, obviously, Summer and Ruby and, again, Blake as well, if you want to go there, fine. But, like, that, she doesn't want to give that up. That's why she had that trepidation. Yeah. Whereas, if it's the idea of you have to at least know it, that reaction makes less sense. Because then, as some people will interpret, that, in Yang's mind, she doesn't know what it's like to be loved. Which, again, you look at Raven, I guess I can see where that would come from. But for me, personally interpreting the story, it makes more sense that she doesn't want to give up what it's like to feel loved, because she now knows what that's like. Yes. Whereas maybe years ago, she didn't know what that's like, but she did now. Now she does. Because of Raven, she didn't know what that was like for a long time. Yep. But now, through through Beacon, she knows what that's like. Yep. The other way just doesn't make as much sense to me. Yeah, that's what I thought as well. It's like, they said Alex had to provide a happiest moment and a most saddest moment. So, whether or not she lost those memories when she, basically traded them. Well, that's the thing, Teresa. I agree. It's one or the other. She either still doesn't know what it feels, even though she is in love, she doesn't know what it feels like yet. We haven't gotten to that moment yet. She doesn't really know, and that kind of in that moment that scared her. Yeah. That, like, she had to think for a second, does she actually know what that feels like? Yeah. Can she actually provide that? Can she prove that to Jinxie? And she felt she couldn't. Or she didn't want to give what up she already had. I think both work. I think I personally believe the latter, whichever one I said. The give up. I don't think she wanted to give it up. But I completely understand the idea of she doesn't know what that's like yet. Even with all the love she does have, she still doesn't feel like she knows that yet.
Yeah, and I think also because at the end you see the little the little boy figure then request a hug again from Jinx, and I kind of feel like that's like Jinxie giving the hug back to him because she yeah. Because he's like hello.
I do like the bait and switch of like not baits. I feel like I just say things sometimes, and I hope it makes sense. I like the parallel. Now that I'm thinking, between like Little earlier saying, "Oh, Jinxie just comes in and takes stuff we're not looking at."
Yeah,
and they're like,
"That's stealing."
Okay, that's stealing. And then Little goes like, "Oh well, fair is fair," and just Jinxie's looking, goes and steals the doll because Little again what that connection is between Little and Penny, if there is one.
I think. I think
Little stealing it for Ruby because Little knew that Ruby was having a reaction to it. But again, just that tease of is Little meant to be a surrogate or a replacement for Penny in this world because Ruby needs one? Is the world manifesting that for her or something to that degree? I'm still holding on to that possibility. But obviously tries to take the sword, or takes the doll, turns into the Penny sword. So we get confirmation that Penny swords are here, which I guess, would also imply Penny's body is here. I don't think we'll possibly see that. But we do know that not just a sword, but multiple swords would probably be here. And considering a shot we got in the trailer and what happened to the sword next episode, I think we will see multiple swords.
We might
not just
come
this
across
one.
It again. Yeah.
But it could just be the same one. That's also possible. But I think it's possible we could get multiple ones. I don't know if you can hear that. My cat is scratching at my door.
Yeah, I heard meowing.
1 second.
I think Chris has let Ellie out as well. I had to put Ellie in the laundry earlier, my puppy, because she was just, being a menace. Kitty. That's so cute. Meow. Kitty.
Stay there and behave and don't bite my cables.
Cute kitty.
Don't pee on the bed. Hey, stay on the blanket. Ash, stay on the
exactly what I say to Ellie. Don't be on my stuff. Stop chewing the cables.
Ash has a blanket. Ash needs to stay on that blanket in case he pees.
Ellie took a new blanket I bought her outside. Haven't gone to retrieve it yet. It's probably covered in grass seeds and dirt. And oh God, I try to keep at least one inside that she can, lay on and cuddle in. But no, she's just dragging everything outside.
Yeah. It is. I found it funny too, like the whole idea of like Jinxie being much older, but these townsfolk still falling for the tricks.
Yes.
Which I find interesting. I'm curious again if that has any implications, like a time loop, or maybe this world just acts on its own, and now that we have these outsiders, these 4 people that come in and kind of like the world is more self-aware now that we have people who are more self-aware coming into the world. That the world's now more self-aware in itself.
Could be, yeah.
Again, the idea of like the world reacting to the world around it.
I just had a thought too, and it's relating to Final Fantasy XIV. And Endwalker. So the last area with Endwalker is a place called Ultima Thule, and we believe it was because one of the characters basically sacrificed themselves to help save them and wanted them to be safe in this area. That it's sort of like, it's what's the word for it? It's linked to them, so it's sort of appearing as it looks different before they got there and that sort of thing. So they sort of it's the world is reflecting that action of that character saying, "I want you to be safe," as the sacrifice themselves. So to me, it's sort of for those who have played through Endwalker, you get more understand it. Chozo probably gets what I'm trying to say, but it kind of reminds me a bit of that possibility that the world is showing as it is as a reflection of them, but we still so it could be that as we said before, with it being reacting to their emotions and such, that it's definitely a world which is reacting to what's happening with them. So it's what their journey through the ever after, even though it's kind of Alex's path, I think it's definitely going to evolve further and be different to Alex, because it would have been sort of reflecting Alex and Alex going through the world at her time, and now with them it's going to be a bit different. But yeah,
and that's why I definitely think it might tie into the whole like 5 episodes is Alex's story that we follow, and then we get our Team RWBY's version of the Ever After in the later half of the season. I think is definitely possible, and that's when we'll get like the flashbacks and the self-reflections and the confrontation, the world kind of attacking them and kind of tormenting them and stuff. I think we'll get episode 6 onward. I think, and I think all the trailer stuff, like again, like I think like it wouldn't surprise me if the last thing we see in episode 5 is the Ruby standoff. So who you're gonna be, and then it ends. And then the rest of the season is like just that kind of dark, reflective stuff. I think would be really interesting.
And because when Alex was there, it was just her, as far as we know. It was just her. Whereas with we now got Team RWBY, we've also got Jean and Neo, so that's 6 people in this world, and the fact that the world is sort of reflecting off them and reacting to them.
Yeah, that's 6 people now.
That's 6 people that are in this world, and Alex stood out of the wall just on her own.
Also, that's just the characters we know. Again, whether or not they bring it up, Cinder caused more people to fall than just our 6 heroes. There were a bunch of civilians. I guess you could the implication that those civilians were all dead before they fell. I think that's possible because they fell off an explosion, and they don't have, assumably, we don't have aura or semblance to help them. So that's possible.
That's very possible.
Obviously, we have Ruby running up to grab the sword, and she grabs the sword and has the emotion. And it isn't like that Little just kind of smiles back. Little doesn't necessarily. I think this makes sense that Little doesn't necessarily get sad, like she doesn't understand that emotion.
No, I think Little's was more like that they could tell that the sword meant a lot to Ruby. They didn't know the significance behind it, but they knew it was important to Ruby.
Yeah.
So
Little was kind of just proud that they stole it for Ruby,
not
realizing what the sword meant to Ruby necessarily.
They just knew it meant a lot to her. Yeah.
The video that I've seen probably more than anything. Actually, no. Second most video I've seen on Twitter this week was just all the characters running off screen and just like Yang running off with the arm in her hand.
Yes.
Like being concerned and being cautious, and Weiss just being like, I don't care.
Time to leave.
I thought that was all very funny, showing off like their like reactions and stuff and how they give that. And then like you said, like Jinxie perhaps
I'm out.
Good lord. No thanks. Get me out of here. Yes.
And then like I like the line of like Yang, like they take auctions very seriously around here. And I didn't catch it at first what even she was doing, but after a few research I realized she was trying to ask everyone for high fives with her hand, and Blake's just like I can't believe we're doing this.
High five.
I told you what to do, and I told you not what to do, and yet we're doing it. Weiss is the one who's like, no, I'm not high-fiving you, get lost. And I love the line, and I'm really curious how much significance it's going to have with the idea of Blake being like, she can't believe she's the moral in the story.
Yes.
And I like, again, the idea of Weiss being like, that's what you're so concerned about. You know, it's like, really? Of all things you're concerned about, oh my god, we're following the same footsteps, oh my god, we're doing the wrong thing. And Weiss is like, and again, going back to Weiss being like, the moral of those stories is so, misguided or whatever she said. Ties back into that. I also like to, it parallels Whitley getting mad in Volume 8 about, the family reputation and stuff, and what he finds important. And Weiss is in the same way is like, to Blake, really? The moral of the situation? That's what you're upset about right now?
That's what about what's happening.
We're here. That's the problem. That's what we need to fix.
Yes.
Who cares, what else we're doing and stuff. So I found that really interesting. And then it's like, again, all funny jokes, haha, and then Ruby comes in and everyone's like, oh, right.
Yes, and Ruby starts crying, getting upset again, hence the rain. But, I just, what she said to the guards when they came in, they're like, oh, someone's sad. It's the prince's birthday, no one can be sad. And,
I like how, again, with Ruby being upset, Yang making jokes, and Blake kind of, this moment of self-reflection and stuff, and Weiss is just like, guys, none of this matters. We're in some world, fairy tale or not, let's just get to the tree and leave. None of what we're doing here matters and stuff. And she's just trying to kind of be, the forward force in the story, and then tries and
Just one second.
That's so funny.
I just see. Yeah. I've got a mechanic picking up my car, and I forgot to put the keys out on the doormat. So one second. I was gonna let Chris know, and I'll get him to deal with it. But you keep talking. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, that's all good. So just the scene of Weiss throwing that rock and it just coming back through. Like, sometimes the show can do comedy very well, and I thought that was very good. Much funnier than the Jean rock scene from last fall, and this one worked much better. And like Little being like, yeah, no, you can't do that. You can't just go to the tree. That's not exactly how this works. So yeah, and then like, yeah, then kind of going back and talking about how, like, you know, we know what to do. We know how to get out. We know, just follow the story and we'll get out. And we don't need to bloody... Yeah, Weiss does have quite the throwing. I mean, she's a fencer. I would imagine fencing would have some good ability to throw, maybe?
So that was my watch, if you heard that. My watch is vibrating because the mechanic's calling me. Busy right now. Can I call...
Yeah, I was mostly just talking about, like, I don't know if you had your headphones still in.
Yes.
Yeah, just talking about going around to the trees and stuff, and like Weiss throwing the rock, and just, you know, and Yang being like, I think Yang is the one who says, like, you know, hey, look, we know what the story is. We know if you want to leave, just let's just keep doing what Alex did. Let's find the prince. Let's talk to the cat. Let's see the rest of the night and go to the tree, and we can be done with this.
Yes, yeah, we just have to follow Alex's steps to get to the tree, because just trying to go at the tree is not going to work, as they've discovered. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the fact that, again, as much as the sword made Ruby cry, the more she looked at it, the more it inspired her, the more it cheered her up, and the rain stopped. You know,
yeah,
like,
that she all came to the realization of what they needed to do.
Ruby didn't stop looking at the sword. It's what the sword meant to her in that moment shifted, and the world, again, like I said, shifted around it. Then the knights come in, and, like, you know, it's like, we're going to arrest you, and they're like, Ruby's like, well, okay, if the prince is where we need to go, if the story prince is where we go next, let's go see the prince. And then she goes on just to have this monologue of
about Penny.
Oh, about Penny, and it's
just like my heart.
Yeah, it's almost one of those things it's almost frustrating in the sense of, like, I wish. And again, it speaks to real life.
Weiss has quite a throwing arm.
And
Good lord.
and it is depressing how much this frustrates me, because how much it relates to real life in such a strong way. Because I see this and I'm like, I almost feel like we didn't get enough of this between them when Penny was alive. Like, we almost, like, if Ruby feels this way, it sucks that we didn't get that in real life. But in when she was alive. But again, that mirrors real life so well, because you don't always get to express yourself to people you care about.
Yeah, and it's quite often
sucks, and it's very, you know,
until they're gone, that you realise how important they were.
Yeah, and just the way she says it too, like, you know, she was the greatest warrior. She was touched by magic, and her eyes and heart, you know, she saw the world through different eyes, which a lot of people referencing how she looked at Atlas and stuff before she saved Amity Arena. In Volume 8 and stuff, like, she was a warrior of the stars, and she was touched by magic, and her heart was too good for this world, and saw the world through better eyes. And it's just also, and I like to, because a lot of people have mentioned, or people thinking that, you know, Team RWBY haven't given Ruby enough attention or enough support and stuff, and I get where they're coming from when they say stuff like that, but I also think at the same time this is RWBY they're talking about. You know, these three people know RWBY better than anyone. They assume and they think in this moment that, you know, RWBY is the kind of person that will pick up and get through things. You know, they don't realize how much this is affecting Penny. And I think in this moment, affecting RWBY, I think in this moment where she's talking this, and you see all their reactions, and you see now they realize, okay, you know, this meant a lot more to RWBY than maybe we realized.
Yeah.
You know, and especially because, again, whether you ship them or not, again, RWBY is not a romantic at all. She's not a very, you know, she's, you know, weapon sexual, asexual, possibly whatever we've theorized in the past and stuff. She's not very, or aromantic, I guess would be the better term, I think. I apologize. I do apologize for my, you know, my lack of knowledge.
I think there's just so much going on. I just think with Ruby, she's just, that romantic interest just hasn't been there.
No, and that's the thing too. And again, like, she's always, and again, it's the irony of she's always lived in fairy tales. She's always wanted to be the huntress. That's all that's mattered to her. She doesn't want, like, you could argue that to a degree, Weiss and Blake, in their minds, would grow up to be, and again, Weiss is the heiress, Blake is the, you guess you could say, the heir to the White Fang, or heir to Menagerie, or whatever. They grew up wanting to be the princesses. Blake not as much, but the idea of they're going to grow up. Blake falls in love with Adam. Weiss is literally a princess who will probably get married off, and she probably was aware that was probably going to happen at some point. I remember theorizing back in the day that they were going to bring back
Henry Marigold.
Henry, and there was going to be a storyline with them. I remember we were talking about that back in Volume 5 or 6 or 4, whatever we were doing the podcast back in the day. That didn't end up happening. So this idea that Ruby never had anything like that. Ruby never had any ideas of grandeur or love. She just wanted to be the huntress. She wanted to be the warrior. She wanted to be Penny.
Basically,
yeah. Yeah, everything she said is probably what she wanted to be growing up.
Because Penny was the protector of Mantle, so yeah.
And the fact that she says all this stuff, and it's just like, oh, there's so much to talk about here. I feel like I've missed so many details, but I could also keep talking along forever.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a lot to this.
There was a lot happening, and same with episode 3 as well. I just find a lot in these episodes that so much is happening. All the little details.
And so I guess to wrap up, unless you have anything more for episode 2, but I don't
think I do. I think we've covered everything I want to say.
Just the final bit of Ruby, again, paralleling the Weiss and Ruby talk from Volume 1, where Ruby's like, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what to do, so let's just
stop pretending. Yeah.
Stop pretending. We know the Alex story. We don't have any better ideas, so let's just do that.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. And again, in that moment of maturity, in that moment of, and I think what's interesting is that Team RWBY expected this reaction from Ruby, in a sense. They expected Ruby to bounce up and move on.
Yeah.
Which is like, so throughout the monologue, they were like, oh my god, this has actually affected Ruby more than we realized. We need to be there. We need to support her.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she snaps out of it, but in a mature and angry sort of way, which it raises even more red flags.
Yeah.
Because they're like, the whole time they're like, yeah, Ruby's sad, this sucks, but she'll snap out of it. She'll get her cheer back. She always does.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she's not getting a cheer back. She's not snapping out of it.
No.
Oh my god, she snapped out of it, thankfully. Oh my god, she snapped out of it in a mature, healthy in their eyes for her sort of way. And they're like, okay, we need to treat this more seriously going forward.
Yes.
And as we move into the next episode.